So, good morning, students. Let's start this new day with some of the news that and the current topics that are there in the and as you are aware that these days these form bills, the agitations are going on, and then we have this Indo-China standoff, and the economy is down because of the corona and other issues. So and the students, you must utilize this time as for the online study. As you know, the Unacademy is the largest online platform in the country, and for the UPSC civil services examination, the Unacademy is the best academy, and the so much of excellent faculty is there, and we are teaching you here the successful officers. I topped the joint entrance examination of IIT, and then we went to IIM Ahmedabad, and then IPS and IAS, and then we went to USA to do finance, MBA in finance at the American University in Washington DC. And then I have a PhD also, and we had a successful career in IAS. So we are giving you these tips for the current events, and therefore this is the time, Unacademy, because of the corona you can't have classes physically, and so this is the time for online studies. So let me go to the presentation here. Now, as you are aware that Unacademy this learning app is so advanced technologically, and the software is so good, and the picture and the sound systems are so good. Therefore, you have this structured batches with top educators, batches in Hindi, English, and bilingual, late night as well as 2-year batches, 100% coverage, vast range of optionals, prelims, test series with evaluation, main test series with evaluation, dedicated doubt clearing classes, daily current affairs practice, essay and answer writing practice. This is very important. The way you write the answers and essays is the most important. एक तो आपने बिल्कुल सिंपल फैक्ट्स दे दिए, और एक इफ़ यू गिव इन ए फोर्सफुल लैंग्वेज, द पावर ऑफ योर एक्सप्रेशन इज द मेन थिंग. And then you have this sectional quizzes, interview preparation, and let's go to the next slide now. And so we have this UPSC civil services subscription. There is live class environment, live polls and leaderboard, live doubt solving, and live interaction, and the fees are so reasonable. If you see some of the coaching classes in Delhi, they charge so much, and here for for 12 months and for 24 months and 36 months, it is IAS is not a 1 month job. It is not 2 months. This thing, you have to study for the entire year. And as you know, as we have been successful in IAS, and we topped the IIT, so we know how much effort goes in. And so IAS, if you start preparing, it will take at least 1 year to prepare properly for the IAS exams. And therefore, let's go to the next slide. Now we have this iconic UPSC civil services subscription, personal coach, live class environment, live polls and leaderboard, live doubt solving, and live interaction. And now we have this, if you apply the code VCS10, and you can get 10% discount on an Unacademy platform. And it is better to, suppose you do a 6 month thing and then you repeat again for 6 months, so it is better to take a 24 months or 36 months package. Because even I got selected in IAS in the second attempt. The first attempt, what are the exams, what kind of papers. So actually it is but even then, I missed IAS by just 1 mark, in the first attempt. So, but the first time you have to know what kind of, so second attempt is the main thing. So let's go to the today's news items. Now if you pick up Hindustan Times today, and the first news is find a meeting point on farm laws. Now, as you are aware that so many farmers are marching towards Delhi, and Prime Minister Modi ji and Honorable Amit Shah ji is telling that this is good for the farmers, but at least there should have been some discussions with the state governments also, at least some, because these days the PM office and the government of India is so powerful, and India is a federal country with so many states. So, and farmers are responsibilities of the central government as well as the state government. So some discussions with the farmers group should have taken place, although the 3 bills that were recently enacted, they are removing the farmer from the clutches of the middleman, and APMCs, and the Essential Commodities Act has been modified. As you know, Essential Commodities Act was an act implemented in the times of scarcity. So what is the need of it now? And now suppose we have this, farmer is given an option to do contract farming with multinationals, with exporters, with food processing industry. So the farmer is so poor right now, the agriculture is in distress. So if these MNCs and big business, if they have some contract farming, they will invest technology, they will pour money for suppose he signs a 15-20 year contract farming agreement. So therefore, this is the intention of Modi ji's government is to make India as a food manufacturing capital of the world, food manufacturing nation for the world. And therefore big ideas are there, but they should have discussed with the state governments. And there was a issue of this MSP, minimum support price, was not even mentioned in the 3 bills. Therefore the state governments were very apprehensive that farmers may become a slave to these multinational companies. And therefore some of the state governments have enacted MSP laws after so this could have been avoided. But now the farmers are also they are sent from Punjab. No other government has sent farmers. So why Punjab government? Because the APMCs there are losing 3,500 crores of revenue, which straight away is a state revenue. And then all these middlemen, they must be supporters of I don't know which party, but they want it to be, because in the end it is the farmer who suffers. Most of the profit is taken by these fat middlemen, adatiyas they are called in Rajasthan. So let's go to another exciting, this banking, a buy, operate, dilute model. Now this is a Suresh Rai is a fellow at Carnegie, India, and he says that corporate banks are not ideal, but capital is scarce too. And so this proposal of RBI to allow the big business to own private banks has been in discussions for the last 3-4 days, and so his his argument is that the capital is so scarce, and so let the big business take over of some of the banks which have collapsed, and let them infuse capital. And therefore he says that some kind of regulation should be there, and therefore RBI can have a check also. So now, firstly, several banks and non-banking financial companies are staring at failure due to the present crisis in the financial sector. So, facing fiscal constraints, the government may not support all public sector banks, preferring to sell some of them. Now, private banks are fragile because of depositors can shift their money to public sector banks at the first hint of trouble, and therefore MBFCs have always been in a crisis. India does not have a comprehensive resolution mechanism for financial firms. The Financial Stability Board gives India the lowest score among the all G20 countries, and the bank credit growth has been sluggish for years. Public sector banks and foreign banks have clocked almost zero real growth in last 5 years. So that we need more of liquidity, more of credit, and therefore in this background, the crisis in the banking can somehow be mitigated by corporate entry. India needs more and larger private banks, and at least a few public sector banks need to be privatized, and therefore corporate entry can help in the resolution of failed banks and creation of more banks, but it can also create other problems. Larger corporate houses can game the system to inordinately benefit themselves while creating problems for the financial stability and consumer protection. So, are these risks justified? First, the corporate houses take over failing banks over the next 2-3 years and select new banks. During this time, an independent resolution framework for failed financial firms is built, and RBI reform is prioritized. And second, for say 10-20 years, corporate houses run banks, and the RBI manages the risk of connected lending by corporates. Therefore, some kind of, and third, after the corporates have made a reasonable return on their investment, gradually dilute corporate stakes to shift towards widely held ownership. So this, stages wise we can do. And so this debate will continue for some time. And now if we see this, the third important article today is the economy turning. And therefore, the Indian economy did better than most economists expected in the second quarter, July to September, in the current fiscal year. A GDP contraction of 7.5% after a massive 23.9% in the June quarter is by all means a significant sequential improvement. It shows that the June quarter number was a reflection of the 68-day lockdown rather than any massive damage to the productive capacity of the economy. And to be sure, the latest GDP figures are not surprising. And because we have such a good economy and stance, if the macroeconomic parameters are very stable, and therefore there is also a big picture message in the latest GDP numbers. India's economic challenge in a post-COVID world is not going to be restoration of positive growth rates. That is more than a question, when rather the real question is whether economy can regain a high growth trajectory which gives to a long deceleration phase even before the pandemic struck. This will require a vision and strategy for growth and ensuring that there is no permanent damage from the disruption. The government has unleashed critical second generation reforms which could unleash hitherto unexploited growth possibilities. As you know, the farm bills and the industrial reforms, the production linked incentive scheme recently announced by the government, they are second generation reforms are coming after the first generation came in 1991. And so let's go to another, the Times of India. So the Tibetan community, as you know, after the Dalai Lama, after the Chinese, they captured Tibet, and and Lhasa, the capital, the Dalai Lama, asked for asylum in India, and our late Prime Minister Nehruji, gave him asylum. And this Tibet community has been living in our country for so long, and they have also formed a government in exile. And recently the president of the Tibet government in exile went to White House and met the top functionaries and a Tibetan envoy appointed by President Trump. Now recently these Chinese people are they are worried about any independent movement in Tibet, and therefore some spies were also arrested recently. And so this is a good article. For 61 years, the Tibetan diaspora has been a community in waiting, as those from outside Tibet prepare to elect their government in exile. At a time everything has moved online, disruptions have become easier. And cybersecurity researcher Tenzing Dahla, who works with the Tibetan Policy Institute, a think tank under the Central Tibetan Administration, talks about this with Chandrima Banerjee. So this is the good thing, and because China is they are not approving their statements from the Foreign Office say that this formation of Ladakh as a union territory, and this is not valid. So we must encourage this movement, Tibet and all. And because our government was very careful, and no official contacts were there with Dalai Lama or of his administration or the Tibetan administration up till now. But now we should be fearless, and we should formally we should have established relations with Taiwan, and this one China policy, we have to deviate from one China policy, because we are agreeing to all their things, and they do not even agree to any of our even this boundary question needs to be resolved immediately. And then we have this important article by Harsh Vipant, Trump's lasting legacy. Now, as you know, this rise of China and its willingness to challenge the existing order is the single most global reality Biden will confront. Much in the mold of Trump's America's First, Biden has talked of a foreign policy that works for the middle class, and that means continuing challenge Beijing on trade and technology. So this Biden also cannot, because once he takes over on 25th January, and I hope he takes over, and although Trump is not willing to concede, but gradually he's issuing statement, and because America is such a great democracy, I don't think he will not move out of White House, and I don't think he will be forcibly evicted from the White House. So now this Biden is coming, and of course he has allowed the transition process. Now as soon as the Biden is in power, now India has to do some important stuff. With President Trump, we could not sign a free trade agreement, and this was very necessary. Although Modi ji and Trump had a good rapport, but what is the use of such good rapport? We went to Howdy Modi event, and then he came to Ahmedabad, and so many people, but the proof of the pudding is in eating. So we could not, and we have to now bend a little. We can't be so protectionist of our dairy sector and manufacturing sector. Of course RCEP we do not sign, but with EU and USA we have to do these free trade agreements. Indian exports to Europe now they are 9% customs duty is levied on them, whereas exports from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, they don't have any, because they have agreements with them. So it is very important that we become competitive, and so this is the Trump and Biden this transition, and we have to take this take use of the opportunity. And this Quad 2+2 also we have to strengthen. It is called NATO, like Pacific NATO kind of a stuff, Japan, Australia, and then we have to build our own defenses. right now, if you see this RCEP, Japan and all, they are so critical of China. They floated this supply chain resilience initiative, and Australia is having trouble. Their wine export, additional duties have been levied, tariffs, and still they signed RCEP. And therefore, in the event of even if we sign Quad 2 plus 2, and because finally nobody may come in the event of a war, so we have to strengthen ourselves and become a strong nation. And one more article about in Times of India today is the demand deficiency. The GDP data flags an urgent need to revitalize private consumption. Now, this is a very important thing. The GDP data on the second quarter of 2021 conveys a mixed picture. The GDP shrank by 7.5% to 33 lakh crores. And this is the first recession or two successive quarters of contraction since the quarterly data became available. But the decline is lower than 9.8 forecast by RDI in its monetary policy last month. And to that extent, the silver lining is that recovery from the first quarter's contraction of 33.9% is better than expected. And granular data, however, shows that economy remains in a bad shape. And therefore, the strength of private consumption is an important economic indicator. It is the largest component of GDP, and it fell in the second quarter by 11.3%. This is telling of what has happened to the purchasing power of consumers. So now purchasing power in the agriculture sector, there is so much of distress, so much of lack of. So there is a need to revive the government expenditure in Manrega and all these. In the rural area, there is need to pump in purchasing power. And what we can have some big projects at this time. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji had launched this liver ranking projects. We are losing thousands of crores of our wealth by these floods, and if we can interconnect our rivers, and at the same time so this building of these large will pump in purchasing power. But right now, for the short term, we have to improve, and particularly the PDS system. Also, there was a suggestion that we are giving this public education system, we are not giving pulses, and we need to increase in the rural areas. People are generally poor, so you don't give to last 20-30%. Let's say if any farmer has more than 25 bighas of land, then you don't give him PDS stuff. But suppose he's less than 25, no, less than 25, that means he's poor. So let's say in the rural areas, some 80 to 90% people should get the advantage of this. And then we have this. The last article was this gender diversity. And India's FY23 GDP sees upward revisions on faster Q2. So this is today is Guru Nanak's, Guru Nanak Jayanti, and all the state governments are closed, and this Sikh religion, if you see how much sacrifices they gave, and Guru Gobind Singh, Guru Nanak Ji, imagine what pain they had. Their fun, their beautiful children were, the walls were made, and they were उसमें उनको चिन दिया गया. Such a, and फिर the Sikhism was initially came in the defense of India, for the defense of Hindus, and of course now so much of I see, and some we must some of the gurudwaras and some of the good items that they have, jo seva samarpan, I see people, if you go to Durgara, people cleaning shoes, and and cleanliness is, we must learn from gurdwaras, our temples, and other religions should also learn the cleanliness, and the langar, and the even I was seeing these farmers coming from Punjab, and they are having langars, and they are feeding, the police people who were on duty. And the administration may not have made arrangements, and therefore these policemen उनको पंगत में बैठा दिया और उनको अच्छा तरह खाना खिला रहे हैं. आप देखिए, the agitators and the law upholders are very cordial, and these policemen sat in the line, and they were having chapatis and whatever that was prepared. So such a good rapport here in India. And let's go to a new article, Indian Express, new paper. And onwards and upwards. This is a Soumyakanti Ghosh is written an excellent article about the GDP data released on November 27 takes us back 50 years when the economist and Nobel laureate Paul Samuelson, on being asked on a television panel about his changing views on inflation, observed, "Well, when events change, I change my mind. What do you do?" India's GDP data, for that matter, the GDP numbers released globally, lead to a similar predicament. Until now, GDP data for the third quarter of calendar 2020 has been released for 49 countries, 44 of whom contracted in the range 0 to 10%. The narrative has changed for the better since the first quarter, when India's GDP growth declined by 23.9%. So what does the data show? The most remarkable part is the nominal GDP loss narrowing down to 1.98 lakh crore in the second quarter of financial year from a staggering 11.1 lakh crore in the first quarter. So this recovery is very important, as you know. And one worrying data point is a large discrepancy in the second quarter numbers. And the disruptions in the labor market, however, could be a risk for future consumption and inequality. There have been more aggressive cuts in employee cost in case of small companies with a turnover up to 500 crore. This is also substantiated by results of NCAER business expectation surveys that shows that firms were more likely to terminate the employees of temporary workers compared to that of permanent workers, owing to skill premium of the latter. And therefore, we have to be very careful. So we now expect the GDP decline for a full year to be in single digit, and the possibly even lower than the RBI and market forecast. The third and fourth quarter numbers are likely to spring a positive surprise, and therefore, which with better than expected, the second quarter numbers economy could spring a positive surprise. And then another article here is the glimmer and tunnel. The economy outpaced expectations in the second quarter, but sustainability of rebound in activities remain a concern. And the stronger than expected uptick in the economic indicators in October, while raised optimism over the state of the economy, must be treated with a caution. And therefore, and this COVID also, now we are having so many of vaccines coming up, so we hope that this is. One another article is by Nikita Khaitan, Justice on Trial. Existing bail regime loaded against poor and underprivileged needs urgent reforms. Because as High Court and Supreme Court, what the lawyers they charge? 1 lakh, 2 lakh rupees, and the Supreme Court 5 lakhs. And what if a common person has to approach the court? He may go to lower court, even then 25,000, 50,000, and then there are so many. So this there has to be judiciary has to reform itself. Why, for example, Bombay High Court did not give bail to Arnav Goswami, and he had to reach Supreme Court, and then the way the High Court is acting in Bombay, and for example, when the houses were destroyed by the Mumbai Corporation, they could have given the stay immediately, but they gave stay in the afternoon, and till then, the houses of a prominent actress was destroyed. And so this is not the judiciary should take decisions in time and not wait for higher courts. And now Bombay High Court has been pulled up by the Supreme Court of India. So it is better, the judges should take, decisions on at the own level, a positive way of this thing. And of course, sometimes when the state is against you, and then you have to approach the High Court and Supreme Court. But how costly the justice has become, and how the poor people will approach. And so let's now go to the next slide. Kindly use VCS 10 for the 10% discount that is being offered, and to unlock the plus experience for a free and start learning from the best. The free special quizzes, free test series, free live quizzes, and now you have this all India free mock test for civil services aspirants is being organized by Unacademy Aspire. 10th, 17th, 25th, 30th of every month, exciting prizes and scholarship for top 50 rankers. And so much of, good faculty is here. And we, successful IAS officers who have, succeeded in every exam that we appeared. And we are guiding you and how to plan, plan your, this program. And this, as this IAS, because somebody from outside praises it, but when we served as an IAS officer, let me tell you, there is no job as interesting, as diverse as the Indian Administrative Service. I mean, there is no job in the world as interesting, as diverse as the collector and district magistrate, or the secretary to government. And you are keep on shifting from, let's say you are Secretary of Education, then Secretary of Urban Development, and so many, and then you Secretary of Agriculture, then Secretary of Cooperatives, and then you are managing some chairman of some industry, and so many varieties in your career. And how to tackle these politicians. These sometimes the politicians are illiterate, they don't know how to read, and then and sometimes there are corrupt politicians, how to deal with them. And so as you progress in your career, it is such an interesting. And now we have this T20 Daily Current Affairs series, November 1st test series for UPSC Civil Services. And now you have this YouTube, we have this free live classes and daily current affairs, UPSC Civil Service Exam, special event notification, book summary. And in the Telegram also we have this free live notifications, free PDF studies, material, daily free YouTube sessions, and special event notification and free test series notifications. And we have this 6 months course for UPSC. You have the Mission 2020, as you know, bilingual and English batches. These are, I told you, this is not a 1 month IAS exams, lakhs of students are appearing, and you have to be within one first 100 to get a good state allocation. And therefore, and then we have this Expedition UPSC 2023 and Mission UPSC CSE 2023, bilingual Hindi as well as English. And you see how fees are so reasonable. And in Delhi, some of these coaching classes, they charge 1,75,000, 2 lakhs, and here the faculty is excellent and very knowledgeable faculty is there, even experienced people. And therefore kindly use this code, iconic UPSC civil subscription, personal coach, and live doubt solving, live interaction, live class environment, and live polls leaderboard. And so kindly use this massive discount code VCS10. And so let's stop it at that. So thank you very much and have a good day.